or we tend to be, a little bit more energized as well. So maybe, 2 to 3 minutes will feel good. Same thing with, during ovulation, you have this kind of spike in your body temperature.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. Today I have Azriel, and I will let her introduce yourself to you first. We're going to talk a lot about women's health and cold plunges and what that means for like what the benefits are, when to do it, why to do it, and if it's right for you. So welcome, Azriel. Thank you so much for being here today.
Sweet. Thank you so much for having me, Monica. My
Um,
name is Azriel. I am a breathwork facilitator and women's health coach, and I specialize in supporting women relieving PMS symptoms, reducing stress, and obviously just balancing hormones and finding a healthier, more joyful life in general. I'm really, really excited for this interview because I've dabbled a lot in cold water immersion as it's gotten a little bit more popular. So yeah, hopefully we get to, debunk some myths that are out there and yeah, just give a little bit more solid information on how to go about this if this is something that, you women want to introduce into your routines.
Yeah, I think like clarity is the word that's coming to mind of like, should I do this? Should I not? Is it good for me? Is it not? I'm so excited to talk to you about that more. And you mentioned you do breath work, and I feel like cold plunge and breath work go hand in hand too. But let's start first with what are the benefits of cold plunging and specifically for women compared to men, if there's any difference, and in general, what are the benefits?
Yeah. So first, I want to preface this all with, every single human body is very different. Obviously, men are very different than women, but women, we're all so unique and different, and we all experience different hormonal fluctuations. And I think it's really important to over any type of science or trending thing that people are trying to like force into their lives, you should listen to your own body. Like, first and foremost, number one, there's going to be a lot of different things that we go over. And I think it's just really important to enhance that like intuition and relationship and connection to your own individual body. But, a lot of benefits, there's a lot of benefits to cold water therapy and immersion for men and for women. And most of the benefits seem to be, according to research, pretty much the same, except for the fact that women have this really unique, infradian rhythm of hormones that we experience that, give us a menstrual cycle. So it can actually be, I mean, in general terms, I suppose, it's really great for mitochondrial health. It can enhance circulation in the body when you are doing it well. It reduces inflammation and it can increase muscle recovery time. It can help to increase your metabolism, which is something that's really important for women who experience PCOS. It's really great for releasing endorphins and, mental resilience. It can help with sleep. And obviously, because of, it supporting the reduction of inflammation. It can help with joint pain. It can help with acne. I mean, there's so many different benefits to, reducing inflammation and also increasing metabolism. Um, but yeah, so those are kind of like some of the general things that cold plunging and cold water immersion in particular is really supportive with.
Yeah. So you mentioned a lot of different things that it helps with, and it sounds like it helps with those things for both men and women.
Mhm.
Is there any specific like hormonal benefit for women in specific, or is it just like the inflammation part of things, or you know?
I mean, I always think it depends on what women's goals are. So specifically with the menstrual cycle, just because that's something that I and we both know very well. I think during certain times it can be really, really, really supportive. And then there's also some times where it may not be advised to, expose yourself to this acute stress. Um, Specifically, what comes to mind for me is PMS symptoms. I mean, so many women experience PMS symptoms such as cramping, bloating, mood disruptions and changes. And when it comes to cold water immersion, it is really, really supportive for all of these things. So because the cold water therapy, I mean, from like a hormonal perspective, of course, it releases cortisol and adrenaline, which in the short term isn't harmful. It's an acute stress response. So in the short term, it's actually a really good thing.
Yeah.
It helps to, wake you up in the morning. If you didn't have cortisol, you wouldn't wake up in the morning. And with these levels of cortisol and adrenaline, it can actually improve your mental resilience. So it makes you more resilient to environmental stressors when you're doing the cold plunge well. And when I say that, I mean that in like a very polite way, but there's a lot of people who aren't doing cold plunging well because they're not regulating their breath when they're exposing themselves to the cold water. So that's really, really, really important. If you're dunking yourself into the water and still almost like hyperventilating throughout the whole time and not finding that homeostasis in the water, then you're not doing it well, you're not doing it intelligently, and it can do more harm for you than good. That's when, going into cold water and doing this acute stress can be harmful. Also, if someone's experiencing chronic stress in their life,
Mhm.
I don't necessarily recommend them adding more stress by going into, cold water immersion. I would almost recommend, practicing more like yoga nidra, more calming
Mhm.
things first. And then once they have their chronic stress in order, then, potentially trying cold water immersion. But um, I kind of went off on a tangent, which I feel like is so
Yeah,
easy to do.
that's okay. Yeah. So it sounds like maybe doing something more just like maybe breath work would be beneficial for someone like that. And when you say
Yes.
some doing cold plunging well, what does doing it well look like?
Well, personally, I think it's really important to your first time, for example, I think it's important to have a coach or someone kind of guide you through the process.
Yeah.
Ideally, what you want to be able to do is regulate your nervous system while you're exposed to the cold water. So, your first time doing a cold plunge of, 50 degrees or less, it's going to be very stimulating to the body. Naturally, your breath will become more shallow, and you're naturally in a state of fight or flight at that point. Your body is in shock, and so being able to regulate your breath and relax all of your muscles while you're exposed to that cold water, that's essentially training your body, your mind, your nervous system, to regulate itself during these really stressful situations or environments, so that you're well equipped in, outside of the cold
Real
water.
life. Yeah.
Yeah, when something stressful happens in your life and you're under a lot of pressure, you have that tool. You've done that training to regulate your nervous system in those states of stress.
Mhm.
Now, the biggest piece of cold water therapy is regulating the nervous system, and it starts with the breath. Always starts with the breath. You want to elongate your inhales and exhales, and you
Mhm.
also want to do the best you can to relax your muscles. A lot of people go into the cold plunge and they're like bracing themselves the whole time. And, you know, I think doing a cold plunge well is regulating your breath and relaxing the muscles, relaxing into it
Mhm.
and training yourself and telling yourself that you're safe and this is temporary. Um, Also, it's not advised to, go into a cold plunge for longer than 8 minutes at a
Mhm.
time, especially if you're someone who hasn't really done it very often.
Mhm.
Um, and according to, research, 11 minutes a week is ideal. So, if you break 11 minutes up into, 5 days, that's 2 minutes a day.
Yeah.
A lot of people think that they have to be in it for a really long time, and you can put your body under that type of stress if you want, but it's not necessary. There
Yeah.
isn't really more benefit going beyond that other than like mental resilience,
Mhm.
and then, kind of inflating your ego a little bit.
Yeah. And also like if people haven't tried it, like longer sounds like harder, but also like it just gets easier. So
Mhm.
it's like almost like it sounds like the amount of time is the amount of time that you are actually getting not just like benefit, but the amount of time that it takes for your body to adapt. So after that, like there's really almost no point in staying in unless you really wanted to, kind of thing.
Yeah, and you definitely, your body will begin to adapt and acclimate to it. And I always, when I'm coaching people through a cold plunge, I always have people set a time goal before getting into the water
Hmm.
between 2 to 3 minutes. And sometimes I say, like, go for the lower one for now, get in, try to meet that goal. And if you want to stay in longer, then, you can stay in a little bit longer. You don't
Yeah.
have to. You can push yourself a little bit if that feels good. But, ideally, setting that goal before and then reaching that goal really kind of supports that like mental resilience piece, because when you say you're going to do something and you stay committed to that and you reach that goal, it's a win. For some people it's just getting in and out is a win, and that's great. But of course, once again, depending on what people's goals are.
Yeah.
Um, and for a woman, it's menstruating women, it's going to be different during different phases of our cycle. So there's some phases where, you're going to be like, I can do 5 minutes. And then there's some phases where you're like, I don't even want to go in at all.
Yeah.
And, that's okay.
Yeah. So with the phases, is there like a difference with each phase? Like, should you be there for a specific amount of time? Is it like, is there any phase where you shouldn't do it? You kind of mentioned, I think, that a little bit, but is there one phase where you definitely shouldn't go in, or is that like a myth too? And I guess we can talk about what are the phases if people don't know what each phase is ever.
Yeah, so there are technically 2 phases, but we like to break them into 4 phases of
Mhm.
the menstrual cycle just for simplicity and, makes more sense. So there's the menstrual cycle or the menstrual phase, which is the first half of the follicular phase. And then once you stop bleeding, it continues into the second half of the follicular phase. When you are ovulating, that is technically third phase. It's the first few days of the luteal. And then the second half of the luteal would be like the luteal. Um, and so day one begins on the first day of your period, and that's the menstrual cycle.
Mhm.
So I am someone who, I hear so much like jargon and like conflicting things about cold plunging and just like different things about hormonal health in general online and like Instagram. I feel like people are using these like buzzwords and like
Fear
these,
tactics, kind of.
yeah, kind of scare tactics, and
Yeah.
also like trying to get attention from
Yeah.
people for like more followers.
Yeah.
So they're like, you should never cold plunge as a woman, period. Or you should never cold plunge when you're on your period. That is the worst possible thing you could do for your hormones and blah, blah, blah. And I just think that that is totally false and ridiculous to be sharing with people.
Mhm.
Like I said earlier, if someone is experiencing chronic stress and very clearly has, you know, imbalanced hormones that are beyond the menstrual cycle, then I wouldn't say cold plunging is like the very first thing that you should go towards. I always say diet, sleep, making sure you're drinking enough water, and being able to relax and calm your nervous system and find periods of rest throughout the day. Those are like the most important things
Yeah.
um, to start with. But if you're curious about, cold plunging and the benefits of it, I do think that it's okay to cold plunge in any phase of your cycle. It may not be as comfortable for you in the menstrual phase than, when you're ovulating. But I do think that it is okay if it feels good for you and your body. But you also need to make sure that you're very connected to your body when
Yeah,
you are doing these things and not just, going in and doing it because it's trending. And I
right.
think a lot of people are doing that. Um, and, that's almost the opposite of what the cold plunge is meant to do for you anyway. It's meant to connect you to your body, not disconnect you from your body. You're meant to sit there and really feel into the different changes in the system, not completely like, you know,
Dissociate from it.
disassociate. So, because of the estrogen and progesterone levels in throughout the different phases of the cycle, it affects your body temperature. So,
Mhm.
um, you know, your menstrual cycle on day one, you have a drop in your, average body temperature.
Mhm.
So it may feel a little bit more uncomfortable for someone to get into cold water because it's not as easy for you to regulate your body temperature during, especially, the menstrual phase. And it also may be a little uncomfortable. However, I get cramps sometimes when I'm starting my period, and sometimes getting in the cold water is really soothing.
Mhm.
Um, so if it is something that someone, wants to do in the menstrual phase
Yeah.
or wants to try, maybe try 30 seconds, maybe try a minute. You don't really need to go beyond that, but, ease into the exposure. It doesn't have to be this really, prolonged period of time. For the follicular phase, for example, you do still have a lower body temperature, but typically because of the elevated levels of estrogen, you are a little bit more motivated, and naturally you tend to be, or we tend to be, a little bit more energized as well. So maybe 2 to 3 minutes will feel good. Same thing with, during ovulation, you have this kind of spike in your body temperature, and maybe a longer, like 4 minutes, feels really good, but you don't have to overdo it. The key is like really listening to the body here and not putting yourself under more chronic stress. Yeah. And then, like, depending, in the luteal phase, you have higher levels of progesterone, so your body temperature is naturally higher. It may feel really, really good to go into, the water for like 4 minutes. But it's not necessary. The research shows that 11 minutes a week is enough and ideal. So if you want to break that into 3 sessions, it could be 3, 3, 4, or, or 5, or whatever. And also, like, that's what research says, but you don't have to go in for 11 minutes a week. You could just try it because it feels good. Um, do you think that was helpful?
Yeah, and it sounds like it's like also like you were saying to like, well, what I'm understanding to also like experiment with it. Like if for you it helps you during your menstrual cycle, then you would have never known that unless you tried it, because if you were told that you shouldn't, then you wouldn't have tried, you know?
Hmm.
So yes, like listen, like yeah, you can look at the research, but you can listen to your body, but also just try it out and see how your body responds to.
Yeah, and there really isn't too much research that shows it harming any part of your female anatomy when you expose yourself to cold water during the menstrual phase. Like,
Mhm.
there's no research that shows, yes, this is harmful. So I really think it's a case by case basis and really specific to each individual's body. And once again, you have to have that trust in yourself to be able to try something a little bit different and see how you respond to it. And then you'll know if it's for you or not. Um, and I think that, that's kind of goes into empowering ourselves as women and not just listening to what we're told all the time, thinking that other people know better than we do about our bodies.
Mhm.
I've been living in this body for a long time, and I'm seeking the knowledge about this body. And I'm also, of course, taking in information about certain things, but I'm also having my own experience.
Yeah.
And as a woman, I think that there's something really powerful about that, just as humans in general. We have an experience and we shouldn't dismiss that just because, we hear something that someone said once about, who knows what and with what credibility.
Hey everyone, I want to take a brief moment to talk about something that I've been loving lately. It's the grounded cold plunge. If you are interested or into cold plunge, trust me, you're going to love this. The grounded cold plunge is portable, easy to assemble, and perfect for wherever life takes you, whether that's at home or on the go. And the best part is they're offering an exclusive friends and family discount just for you. The discount is $300 off plus a travel bag to make it even easier for you to cold plunge anywhere you go. All you have to do is call or text the number 714-728-3978 and mention the code Monica300 to claim your discount. Trust me, if you've been thinking about starting to cold plunge, this is your sign. Okay, now back to the episode. Yeah. Yeah. And you were mentioning also, I guess there's like two questions there. Would you recommend doing like we kind of do this when we've done it, like doing a breathwork session before every time, or maybe not a session, but like a little breathwork practice before you go into a cold plunge every time to help you get into that state of like more connection and relaxation almost?
I do think that it's powerful when you do. And there's so many different techniques out there. So, like Wim Hof method is, pretty popular before going into a cold plunge. And I do think it's really important for you to connect to your body and your breath at all times, um, especially going into a cold plunge, but you don't particularly need to in order to, go in. And it always depends on like people's own connection to their body. Like as soon as I make the decision to go into a cold plunge, I immediately start belly breathing and like slowing my breath down. Like naturally, my body's like, okay, we're about to do this. Like we're preparing mentally for this for, 3 hours until the appointment
Mhm.
or, and then before going in, like you can watch certain people who have done it many times and you watch their breath and like their bodies just naturally immediately know versus someone who's never done it is like almost anxious freaking out before going in. So I definitely think that connection to your breath before is important. And also, if you have access to a sauna, try
Mhm.
going into the sauna for a little bit before and, seeing how that feels too. If you have access to these different like biohacking equipment and tools, like see how it feels to like warm the body up a little bit before going into the plunge. And, if some people really like that, I particularly would just prefer to get into the cold water rather than warming my body up. But
Yeah.
you can try that too.
And there is such a thing as like cold and hot therapy alternating between
Mhm.
the two, and there's benefits to that too, right?
Yeah, a contrast therapy is incredible. The I mean, the benefits are very similar to, cold water immersion. And also, I want to say it supports like tissue growth or something
Mhm.
like that. I'd have to look into it a little bit more, but yeah, there's benefits to all of
Like,
it.
is it maybe like human growth hormone?
It
You
might
don't know.
it might be that.
Okay.
Um, I'd have to like go into my database of of that.
Yeah.
Um,
And I was gonna mention too, I think most of us are probably stressed somewhat chronically, some more than others. How would you say someone can go about knowing like this is the right time for me to like try this, or if they're having, do you feel like if you know that you're having an acute stressful situation, maybe this is not like the best time to go and try to do a cold plunge? Like, yeah, how do you know when is a good time to try it?
well, I don't know if I don't know if I agree with everyone or like most people being chronically stressed. I do think that we all experience acute stress. Um,
Mhm,
but I mean, it really depends, you know, like if someone's struggling with mood disorders,
mhm,
um, and they hear cold plunge and they see like, oh, okay, it helps to increase your levels of dopamine
mhm,
um, by like 250% is what research shows. Then I think like, okay, doing it intelligently, trying it with a coach or a friend who's done it before and
yeah.
doing it well, I think it could be supportive for that. And I think the right time to know is like when you get the urge and the desire for it and when you get that inspiration for it.
Mhm,
Um, if you're wanting to like for me, sometimes when I'm in a mental block, a creative block, I get into the cold water and I meditate on, whatever it is that's blocking me. I share affirmations, I share like manifestations out loud while I'm in the water, and it helps to kind of open that up for me
mhm,
and builds that mental resilience. If someone is experiencing if someone wants to lose weight and increase their metabolism, the science is showing that it's actually really great for building brown adipose tissue in the body, which helps to regulate your metabolism. And, it can be really beneficial for that. So I'd say whenever someone gets the inspiration for it,
yeah.
like call someone who you know has done it and tried it and you can trust and try it and see how it goes. I think, I wouldn't say that there's a bad time to do it unless you're like literally having a panic attack or something. Then I probably wouldn't recommend going into a cold plunge during that. But I mean, even someone experiencing chronic stress, like try meditation first, try some breath work first. And if you're like really want to try a cold plunge, it's just calling to you, maybe that's going to be your thing and doing it intelligently with some support from someone who knows what they're doing and you trust. Um, I'd say go for it.
Yeah, yeah. Again, like just again, listening to your body, it sounds like, and your intuition.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend a pregnant woman going into a cold plunge ever, but that's pretty much one of the only like yeah, one of the only populations that I would suggest maybe not, or
Mhm.
definitely not.
Mhm. Um, is this is unrelated too, but kind of related. Is the sauna also contraindicated for pregnant women? Do you know?
Um, so
I
like,
mean, I'm sure like things like this probably haven't even been researched really, but I know that a hot tub is not recommended.
yeah, so, you know, I think at a certain point for a pregnant woman, like, when she reaches like 3 months or
Like second trimester or something.
yeah, second trimester, maybe not, but I think initially, a little bit of sauna, maybe like 10 minutes of sauna, you're not really within 10 minutes of, say, a sauna is like the one that I go to sometimes doesn't even get above like 125. That's like being in the desert in Palm Springs. So I don't think that that's going to be harmful.
Yeah.
But once again, trust the body, listen to the body. As a breathwork facilitator, I have guided pregnant women through, a pretty powerful breathwork practice. And I tell them, take it easy, go really slow, be intentional, maybe, do a few rounds and then stop and see how you feel, do another couple rounds of the breathing, see how you feel. But like, I think that it's becoming a little bit more um, like, oh, what is the word for it? West, I feel like us here in the West, we have like taken away women's strength by telling
Like
like Western
outsourcing.
yeah, Western medicine has said like, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. Like there's so many things of like what not to do for
Yeah.
one pregnant women and women on their menstrual cycle. And it's like we are really strong. Women
Yeah.
are very strong, very resilient. I mean, at one point, like we were doing very similar things that men were doing. Maybe we weren't hunting, but we were going out and fetching water, carrying like all
Yeah.
kinds of things on our body and walking really far distances while pregnant, while having like a baby on your boob, breastfeeding it. Like we're so
Yeah.
much stronger than this like sterile, that's the word I was thinking of, this like sterile Western limiting perspective. And like, yes, going into the sauna for 30 minutes at 150 degrees while pregnant probably is not a smart idea, but like, would a
Or
pregnant
even when
woman,
you're not pregnant, probably. Like, yeah, just don't. Yes.
yeah, well, thirty minutes at 150 is like, is, is definitely pushing yourself. I can't personally stay in for that long. Some people can, but, um, you know, I don't think that that's going to feel intuitive for someone to be like, yeah, I want to do that. They'll get out before then. They'll be like, this is too much. I'm
Yeah.
over it.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I think, it just kind of goes back to like trusting your own body and your own intuition and what feels good for you. There are some things
Mhm.
that can, like avoiding certain foods like fish and, higher levels of, no drinking caffeine. I think those things are important, but these other things too, like trusting the body is important.
Yeah. And it sounds like also like questioning things just before you subscribe to everything that you are told.
Totally. I mean, yeah, I see pregnant women in the gym lifting really heavy weights, and I think it's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
I just get so inspired and so excited and happy and and then when people like I have a client, he's a chiropractor and he asked me if his pregnant wife could come to my class. And I said, have you spoken to your doctor? And what has your doctor said? And they, I assume, go to a holistic doctor who said actually breath work could be really positive um, during this time. And so I get excited by that because people are tuning more into their bodies and not listening to, outside sources to tell them what to do and not to do. And I guess that's like my inner rebel coming out.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I don't know. And also there's so much more science now that's beginning to come out that supports all of these, ancient
Practices.
remedies and practices that have been around for so long, like and in Sweden, I mean, contrast therapy is a lifestyle for them. I mean, in I have I work with someone who I can't remember if she's from Sweden or the Netherlands, but she said that there's a sauna in almost every apartment
Hmm.
and that's
So
just
every individual apartment.
yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
And yeah, to me that's just like, oh, duh, of course. Like that makes sense for them. Why are we questioning this so much? Of like, oh my God, when should I? When should I not? It's like, come on, that's part of their life. And same thing when you go to a Korean spa, they have like sauna, wet sauna, dry sauna, and a cold water pool. So people have incorporated these practices for so long, and now science we're studying like what the benefits are, and science is catching up. But also, like, let's remember to listen to our intuition and tap into our bodies too.
I want to quickly share something that's been such a helpful addition to my own wellness routine, and that is Fringe Healing Light Therapy. Fringe Healing is a line of products that has different light therapy products that include things like the pelvic wand to the wrap to the face mask, and they all serve a different, very versatile purpose. So I have been using the pelvic wand with my history of having once had an HPV diagnosis. I do everything that I can to support my own internal healing process and own internal microbiome, and the pelvic wand is just the right tool to help me further support my own health, pelvic health. And it's been really cool and really interesting to learn more about it. If you want to check out a video I did with Liz Frey, we talk a little bit more about how light therapy can help support your own HPP healing. I also love the wraps and even the face mask. The face mask is for anti-aging, collagen production, something that we are all excited and interested in as women and even men, I'm sure. And the light wraps, the light therapy wraps, breath light therapy wraps are for pain reduction. And these have been super helpful when I have like low back pain from driving from and to LA for work. So as you can tell, very versatile. They are at the cutting edge of technology. Their products have a timer, so you never have to worry that you're getting too much light. So the timer is for specifically the amount of time that you should be using that specific product. And the amount of the potency of light is also very specific to what your body needs for that, whatever the item is for. So like pelvic health or face or anything in between. So if you're curious to learn more about how light therapy can help support your own wellness journey, head to the link in the description below, and you can also use code Monica25 to get a whopping 25% off. So if you're interested in learning more, go check them out. Yeah, like we don't have to wait for the science to like and hear what your body's telling you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know, this might be like kind of cringy, but if you really like want to become conspiracy theorist about things, like maybe, yeah, like even questioning that, like why are all these like parameters put around things and like who benefits from that kind of thing?
Mm.
And just asking questions like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I think asking questions is really, really important for people in general. Um, but yeah, there's been a lot of people that I've seen on Instagram that make these like really wild claims. And I just think it's crazy to make a claim about anything generally being bad.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, there are certain things that we know are not great for you, like, lots of high fructose corn syrup in your diet is not good for you. When you're eating a lot of processed foods with canola oil and all of these things, and that takes up the majority of your diet, you're going to have issues. But if you go to a liquor store once a month for the rest of your life and you get a freaking Snickers, I'm probably that's probably not going to, and you eat really healthy otherwise, it's probably really not going to affect your body that bad or, do that much damage to you. Um, so I don't know. Yeah, there's a lot of people creating like parameters around things. And I do have a conspiracy about a couple of accounts on Instagram that are like women's health accounts that are for sure getting paid by someone like in big pharma or some companies and sharing information. And I'm like, dang, I really hope that people can see through this because it's like sprinkled in strategically. It's like a lot of really good content, and then they share like a couple things, and you're like, oh my, why?
Yeah.
Dang. Or
Yeah.
like, birth, yeah, yeah, especially when it comes to like birth control, but
Yeah, especially when it comes, I think, also to pregnancy, people are get it's like a very vulnerable population that I think, I mean, obviously you don't want anything bad to happen to your baby, so you'll do anything that you're told to do or not to do. Um, so I think that is also another population that gets like fear-mongered a lot,
yeah,
women and like pregnant women.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's true. It is a vulnerable population because and it's you can almost become a different person when you're pregnant too. Like you can have these different values and things, and then all of a sudden something happens and you get afraid and you're like, wait a second, I'm like you turn into like the protector and then that could be dangerous because then you could almost be listening to incorrect information and yeah, but that's true. That's a really good point. With
Yeah.
that being said, I wouldn't necessarily recommend going into a cold plunge when pregnant. Maybe if you really want to like turn your cold water on in your shower
Yeah.
for a
Yeah,
couple
people do
seconds.
that. Like, yeah, like do a little bit of like, I've heard that if you're doing that in the shower to end on cold, is that correct?
Hmm.
Yeah. So if anyone wants to try that at home with their shower and they don't have a cold plunge, you can just do your shower for the time being and
Hmm.
just end on cold.
It's a great alternative, and also like the cold water, depending on your goals, the cold water immersion doesn't have to be you going into a 45-degree tub. Like the cold water could be you going into 60 degrees. If it's uncomfortable physically, mentally for you, it doesn't have to be like 34 degrees, 40 degrees, 55 degrees. It could be 60 degrees. If that's uncomfortable and you're, putting yourself into, you're wanting to boost your mood, you're wanting to increase circulation, you're wanting to reduce inflammation, to a certain level, it can be a higher temperature or even, cold shower.
Hmm.
But if you are wanting to build and increase your metabolism, if you're wanting to get very specific results a little bit faster, then, those like colder temperatures are going to get you there
Yeah.
um, faster.
Yeah, and like you said, like it just depends on what your goals are. Like if you're really trying to like track things and maybe do colder and then track your progress and track what changes you're seeing. But if you're really just trying it out for the first time, you don't have to like worry about all the little logistics about everything
Hmm.
else.
Hmm. Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. Sometimes people get like analysis paralysis.
Yeah, or like, am I doing it wrong?
Hmm.
Uh,
Same thing with breath work too.
yeah, which is funny kind of because I mean you have literally always been breathing. Like you can't technically you can't do it wrong. Like you're breathing all the time.
Mhm.
Um, I'm sure there's like better ways of breathing. Um,
But you're always breathing.
yeah. Yeah. Anyways, well, thank you so much for sharing everything today and for being such a helpful resource. And I know that a lot of women are going to find value in this information. And can you let us know where people can find you and hear more about what you're doing?
Yeah. So I guess the best way to find me would be on Instagram. It's Azriel Eden. It's my first and middle name. And then my website is also Azriel Eden, my first and middle name.com. I work with women one-on-one. I also work with both, women and men, doing one-on-one breath work. I have a couple of really cool charts that I've created for, relieving PMS symptoms, food to eat during certain phases of your cycle, and then also kind of like a phase cheat sheet. It's called Your Inner Seasons Guide, and those are all on my website. But yeah, I'm just trying to create like really easy ways of that women can connect to their cycle and how to support themselves. So yeah, that's that's a good place to
Oh,
find me. Thanks for
yeah.
having me on here. This was cool.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here today, and we'll see you guys next time.
Yay.
Bye. There you have it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found as much value as I did and that you learned more about cold plunging and how it affects and impacts your hormones and your overall health. If you are interested in learning more about women's health, make sure you check out one of my other videos that I will link right here so you can dive deeper into your own hormone health. And as always, make sure you like, subscribe, and share this video with other women that you think will find this beneficial. Okay guys, until next time, bye!